Well, it seems to be the season of Q&As. I've seen several Q&As from some of my favorite creators, and in fact, I know that my friend Chantel from Darkest Raven Designs is doing one this week too. I think it's something about like finishing up the summer and wrapping up all of those projects, and then we're all about to jump into fall and wintertime projects, and it's just this kind of time where I think everyone's trying to rest a little bit. And so Q&As are fun, you get your questions answered, and it's a little bit of a break from making things for me, so I really appreciate that. So today we're doing a Q&A. You also may be wondering why I have this gigantic chest sitting here. Some of the Q&As I've watched recently, I've really enjoyed when the questions have been answered while someone has been doing something. I thought I could organize this tool chest, which has badly needed organization for quite a while. I don't know if I'm talented enough to do two things at once. We shall see. Thought it was going to be so smooth, and these are all locked down. I know I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions, but I do want to make sure I can do as many as possible. And if you had a very specific question about a project and I don't get to answer it in this video, I will try and go back and find your comment and answer it personally on your comment. The first question that I have seen in the comments is, what is your past, or how did you get into miniatures? I answered this in a previous Q&A, which I will link in the description box below if you would like to check it out. But since there are so many new people here, I want to give a quick overview of my background. I went to school for 4 years to study architecture, and my degree is in environmental design. After that, I worked in the architecture field for 4 years. And when I got towards the end of that 4 years, I realized I wasn't really enjoying it anymore and I wanted to try something else. Then I got my certification in teaching, and I did that for 7 years. I didn't really teach for 7 years. 3 of those years I assisted other teachers. But then I ended up teaching art for 4 years, and I really enjoyed that as well. These would have been helpful recently, but they were in here, not organized. These are all the thimbles that my grandfather got for my great-grandmother from Australia. And I have her collection, which actually really need to be displayed. So I need to get these out of here. Oh, this one's from Ireland. I need to get these up on my mini shelf. What's this one? Oh, Happy Mother's Day, 1979. And then just a year ago, I had decided to try and do this full time. And what's really interesting about all these past jobs is I really feel like each one has given me more skills that has led up to what I'm doing right now. My architecture job and my architectural training has given me skills that allow me to design and construct pieces in 3D. And then my teaching job has actually given me a ton of skills in how to communicate things with people who are wanting to learn the skills that I'm teaching. And now we have a cleaned out drawer. So I have an empty drawer if I need to find a place to put something. All right. Next question, next drawer. This does remind me of one question I had from Senpai Chan San, who asked if I had any tips for a current architecture student. And my biggest tip for that would be to get yourself into an architecture firm at some point, whether you can do an internship or you can just get into the architectural firm to kind of see how it works. For me, there was a huge difference between school and actually working at an architecture firm. And some of my classmates had the ability to do an internship, and it really changed their mind one way or the other on whether they wanted to continue down the very long path it takes to become an architect, or if they wanted to try and use their design degree for something else. Rachel asks, how do you break down time chunks in your day, such as actually making miniatures, fulfilling orders, designing pieces for projects and your store, filming, editing, domestic chores, family time, ARA time, or even a week's time? How do you break it down to keep yourself sane and your family happy? And the truthful, honest answer to this is something I'm not great at. Here I have a pencil, and this is a throwback to my architecture days. This is actually some lead that went to a pencil they made us all get. And I don't know if I still have the pencil, but I have the lead. And as you can see, I didn't use very much of it at all. I recently have been stressed and trying to figure out how to fit it all in. The nice thing about having laser cut kits is that I can run the laser cutter for my store while I'm working on something else, and so that's helpful. But really, in the long run, there's still a little bit too much on my plate most of the time. And so I really am trying to figure out how to dial things back, how to take it easy, and how to take it easy on myself when things don't get done. This is a glass cutter, and I think I had to have this for a project once. Probably if I needed to find it again, I would not have known it was in this drawer. So I'm just gonna put this down here. I'll just put that there, and I'll save it for later. I am going to put this lead back in here. I think this would be a great drawer for pens and pencils. And so yeah, when I put out a post on YouTube or Facebook and say I'm taking a little break, you are all always so supportive of that, and I really appreciate it. It's really just me trying to figure out how to balance everything. Dawn Couch asks, I would love to know what tools you would recommend for someone just starting the hobby. Also, any game-changing gotta-haves that you recommend. So I do have a basic toolkits video, which I will link down below, and it has everything that I take in my packed toolkit when I go to take a class, and that will actually have all of the basic tools that you would need to get started in miniatures. On top of that, I always recommend the Easy Cutter. It cuts through wood. I cut through pipe cleaners with it. Not pipe cleaners. Q-tips, there we go. And it's just a really handy tool, and the fact that it changes and you can change the angles on it is just really, really helpful. And actually, I did notice that I have two of these. And I got this one, I think I lost this one at one point, and so I went and got another one. It doesn't have the rotating thing, so this rotates and you can put the piece like right up against it. This one you kind of have to hold it while you cut it, and this one's not bad, but this one is just a little bit more user-friendly, I think. This one might be a little bit more expensive. I'm not quite sure, but always when you're getting one, make sure you get one with a bolt on it. And if it has a bolt, you can take the bolt off and then sharpen your Easy Cutter. And so you don't have to keep buying them. You just sharpen it and then it's ready to go. So definitely suggest these. Vanessa says, hi, I want to start a miniature model of my old house growing up. How can I go about making the actual plans into the model out of foam board? So when it comes to making an actual house versus a dollhouse, there are a few things to consider. An actual house is going to be much wider and deeper than a dollhouse. Dollhouses are designed to be display pieces, and so typically they're not as deep and they're a little bit taller. So you still have quite a bit of room in them, but you can see every room at once. When you're working on a house, it's just going to take up, like a real house plan, it's just going to take up a lot more room. It's going to cause a lot more problems to solve, because typical houses that we live in are not set up for you to view from all angles. But the way I would initially start would be to go to Google Maps and get a shot from up in the sky. So Google Maps takes like pictures of the earth like this apparently. But that'll at least give you your outline, and then you can go in and start measuring. And if you don't still have access to that home, you can look up standards, like the typical house hallway is going to be 3 feet wide, give or take. Kind of start to put it together like a puzzle. So you know there's a room in this corner, there's a 3-foot hallway, there's a bathroom, and you can kind of estimate how big that is, and just start putting it together piece by piece. And then each time there's a wall, you would create a foam board wall for that. And my biggest suggestion for making it viewable would make it so that your roof could lift off. So I think it makes sense to have some of our interesting brushes in here. I'm going to put my acid brushes back in. These are my micro brushes for very small applications. Put those back in there, and yeah, we'll just leave that there for now. I have another question from Paula, and it kind of goes along with Sharin's question. Paula asks, do you have any ideas on what your next big project will be? And Sharin asks, what is your most extravagant future project? So my next big project will be after the Addams is finished. That's going to be my Beetlejuice project. I'm very excited about starting that one. My most extravagant future project, I think, will probably be designing my own dollhouse kit. The whole thought really scares me, but also excites me. I think it would be really fun and really cool, but I think it would be pretty extravagant. I would want to put tons of detail into it. I'd want to make it super customizable so that if you wanted this certain look, you put a wall in one certain way, and then or you could flip it and just make it so that it's a really fun project, and when you're done, each one can look totally different. And so I think that would be my most extravagant, like out there dreaming project, because that would actually be a project that other people could take part in if they purchased the kit. But yeah, my next big project on the channel is definitely going to be Beetlejuice, but I'm still working on the captain's quarters, and we're finishing up the Addams Family project this next month, October. I'm going to be doing an entire vlog month for our final Addams Family October. These are some hole punches that my dad got for me, and so these would probably be a great place to go with these. This will make this drawer really heavy, so that is okay. And I can move these Sharpies and this pen, both of these pens, to... Where'd my pen drawer go? And this is not a dangerous item. It's something that I would like dribble stuff, so it doesn't have a needle or anything on it. I honestly don't know what this is. Oh my goodness, they're so tiny. Look at these tiny drill bits. Wow. I don't know if you can see the numbers on there, but my goodness. I'm just going to have an entire collection of nails by the time this is over. Because apparently I don't know how to put nails away. I just put them in random drawers. Like so. And be done with this drawer. Rhonda says, I would like to know if and how people could get involved with the prompts and the collaboration videos. It seems like a lot of fun and might help when we get in a slump to motivate us to create. So I think what she's referring to is being a collab partner, and so you make a video at the same time I make a video, because anyone can work on the prompts. I put the video out and then it says the prompt and you can tag me on Instagram, but that's usually just a photo. So I think what she's asking about specifically is how to make a video with me, how to collaborate with me, and honestly it's a pretty simple answer. Different creators have reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in a collaboration, and so I asked them if they'd like to do a prompt video. If you are active on your channel and posting videos about miniatures, or even if you're posting techniques that would be helpful for miniatures, I would be open to collabing with you. Numbers don't really matter to me. I'm just looking for an active and creative, exciting channel to send people to. But if you do have a channel and you do want to be a prompt collab partner with me, just reach out, let me know. And I have a list, and I do the prompts about every month and a half, so it may be a while before I get down the list, but there's 95 prompts, so there's room for plenty. Juliana wants to know how I started doing miniatures and why I chose a massive project like the Addams Family project. So this is my Addams Family project. It's huge. And to answer that quickly, I honestly didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just had originally purchased this part of the project, and then just started adding and adding and adding, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. Now when I talk to someone who's just starting miniatures, I often suggest that they start with a room box, which is just a single room where you can create a scene, and so you can focus on things like working on the wallpaper, and then working on the furniture, and then working on the details and the little pieces to put here and there, and then maybe adding some lighting, and then you get a much more cohesive project that finishes up faster, and it ends up being a little bit more rewarding than just continually chasing a project that never seems to end. To answer the question of how I got started, it really started back in my architecture days. I loved building the models in school, and then whenever I didn't see that happening anymore in the architecture field, I purchased a dollhouse, and the rest is history. This is the crazy drawer. The drawer I always go into. It has all sorts of little bits and bobs and pokey tools and scrapey tools and sanding tools, and I just kind of need to sort them out a little bit. It also has some pins, so now that we have a pin drawer, I can move those there. So maybe I need to separate them into poking tools and sanding tools and see what we have left. Now we have poking, sanding, sculpting, beading, embossing. Da, 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 da. I have to cross my legs. I don't know what it is, but sitting with my legs uncrossed for a certain amount of time is tiring. Something wrong with me? Oh my goodness. I know it's not good for me. What? Time to pull out the big drawer. Ooh, okay, I gotta move the tiny camera so you can see what all's in here. Lots of goodies. Andy asks, what's an amazing piece of furniture that you've seen in real life scale that you'd love in a dollhouse, but it just would not work? That is a good question. I guess any furniture that would require some electronics, and that doesn't mean that it couldn't work. It's just, it would be difficult for me because I'm not that good with electrical stuff. I can try and fake it. I did have one question asking if I had made a recliner, a working recliner, and I have made one of those before, but it didn't have all like the gears and stuff. I just kind of like faked it a little bit. So sometimes, even if it's impossible to make it accurately in miniature, I like to try and fake it. And an old list. I love finding old lists. Oh, this is an old Addams family list. I was gonna make a fake closet for Gomez and Morticia, cut the stairs, work on the roof, the stair platforms. This is when I was making the stairs for the outside of the house. Dining room, I had to put in the windows and the wood paneling, floorboards, crown molding, and then that's a shopping list. It's always interesting finding these old lists, and I'm like, that was so long ago, and I did all I was supposed to do. Makes me feel proud of myself. Andy also asks, what things drive you bananas about mass-produced miniatures? You know, I think the first thing that comes to mind is just the shine. I'm not a big fan of the shine that comes on all mass-produced miniatures, and that's only because it really doesn't fit in with my scenes. I know a lot of people make really nice and put together and beautiful looking scenes where everything should be shiny because it would have just been polished with furniture polish. But for my scenes, I like everything to be a little bit more dull, and so typically if I am using a mass-produced miniature and it has that like really shiny finish on it, I end up either spraying it with a matte spray or I sand it down. I usually end up aging it anyway. But honestly, I'm okay with most mass-produced miniatures. I think they can I think it can be hard to try and make everything yourself. Trying to make every single thing yourself can be really difficult and time consuming. And so if you want to put in a mass-produced table here and there, that can save you time. I do it all the time. I like to make it a little bit my own, change a little bit of something on it, but honestly, I think they can be really helpful in the creative process and really bring a lot of relief when you realize you don't have to make every single thing in your project. Nadine asks, please can you share how you overcome project fatigue? And the simple answer to that is I have a lot of projects, and that's how I overcome project fatigue. If you've noticed on my channel, I don't work on the same project every single week. Well, sometimes I do. If I get on a roll, then sometimes I'll do that. But then, for example, the Fairfield in my live streams, I took a 6-month break from the Fairfield. I did work on other projects during that time and kind of healed that fatigue that I was feeling specifically with that project. So I kept the creative juices flowing, but it was just used on a different project, and when I felt refreshed, I was able to return to the Fairfield. So some people like to just work on one project at a time, and if you are one of those people, then you could go back and forth between working on the outside of the house and working on items for the inside of the house. Those two types of miniatures are very different. Working on structural items is a very different process to working on furniture or accessory minis, and so switching back and forth between all of those different types of making miniatures for your project can help save you from some of that fatigue. A bottom drawer coming up, very heavy. This one is probably the most toolboxy, except for the rubber ball. So I always have my hammer in the bottom drawer, so it has to stay in the bottom drawer or I am never going to find it again. Neither will my husband, who has to use my hammer because it's the only hammer we know where it is, and it stays in the bottom drawer. So it has to be in there. So let's make room so that it's not like on top of everything else. Eve asks, does using things like dried parsley, coffee grounds, and dioramas last? If so, how long? What's the best way to make them last the longest time possible? So there are some people who say that you shouldn't use any food or natural products at all in your miniatures. I have seen one miniature, it was in one of the Dollhouse forums where someone posted it, and it was incredibly sad to see someone's hard work being taken over by mold. So I think if there's another viable option that would be just as good, maybe stay away from the natural items, but I have seen it work. I have coffee grounds that are in the planters that are in my Addams family conservatory. They've been there for over a year now and they're perfectly fine. I'm not worried about them. I don't think all of a sudden a year later they're going to magically sprout mold. But if you have an option to not use a food material, so instead of using coffee, maybe you can use like some really coarse sand, then it's a little bit safer to go with something that isn't food. Now I have a plier drawer, and then I'm going to put all of the screwdrivers here. Another little screwdriver. And I know for a fact I have screwdriver set up here, so I'm going to put this in the bottom as well. Of course you don't fit. Of course! Why would you fit nicely down there? Okay. I am going to keep the paint scraper and the pizza cutter in the bottom drawer for obvious reasons. So now the hammer drawer is a little bit better. What's in here again? Okay, all of that stuff. Sadie asks, have you ever considered doing a Munsters replica or maybe Hocus Pocus? I have thought about doing a Munsters project. I probably wouldn't do the entire house because I have the figures for it, but they're larger than 12 scale, so the house would just be huge. So I've thought about making the living room for them and putting all the figures in there. I haven't thought about doing a Hocus Pocus one, even though that would be really fun. Hocus Pocus was like my favorite movie growing up, like one of my favorite movies growing up. I watched Hocus Pocus all the time. All the time. What a squeaky chair. Time to work in the top here. DM Mama asks, since making your announcement about stepping back from a more rigid schedule of weekly postings, have you noticed a difference yet? I did notice a difference. I stopped posting specifically on a weekly schedule, and I found myself taking less breaks, which, to explain how that works, as soon as I posted a video, I would immediately start on another video. And whenever I was posting weekly on Fridays, if I got done early, I would, like, say I got done on a Wednesday, I was like, whew, I can kind of relax on Thursday and Friday, kind of my time off. But when I was just posting whenever, I would just go from one project straight into the next project, and I was taking less breaks. So you may have noticed I've been posting more regularly on Fridays again, and I'm liking that schedule more, but I'm also allowing myself the freedom to post earlier on Thursday or post on Saturday if I'm running a little bit later, and I'm just trying to be nicer to myself when it comes to my schedule and uploading. Here's another syringe type tool that I can use to like drip things. Again, not a dangerous one, just a plastic one. A sponge. This is probably supposed to cover something. You know what this is? These two have been separated for years. So much so that I have forgotten what this is. I was like, this is probably supposed to cover something sharp. Nope, that's not it. It doesn't fit. I was all excited. I don't know what this is supposed to cover. Sorry, you're not reunited anymore. I have some keys. I think these are the keys to my cabinets that I keep locked so my kids don't get into it. And this is the keys to the tool chest that I can lock up as well. And then here's some other keys that I don't know what they go to, and some other keys that I don't know what they go to. Nikki asks, what are your favorite materials to use? So one of my favorite building materials is mat board, which you probably know. I love mat board. I think it's so easy to work with. I prefer it over working with wood. It's a little bit cheaper than working with basswood, and it doesn't crack as much. You do have to worry about warping, but you also do with wood anyway. And I just really like working with mat board. Unfortunately, it's not as easy to find in all countries, and so that's a bummer because I hate when I'm really excited about a project and it's in mat board and someone is unable to find it in their country. But most of the things I make can also be done in basswood. Diana wants to know where I get my inspiration from. Inspiration can come from just about anywhere: movies, TVs, photos. It can come from memories that I have in the past. I recently did a project for my mother that was a porch, and I just found miniatures that reminded me of every single one of my family members, and I created this little antique store scene on the front porch. And so that was really inspiring to me to try and find a miniature that represented each family member to make a really special gift for someone I really love. And so it can really just come from anywhere at any time. As long as it evokes an emotion or a feeling in me, then it could be a possible inspiration for a miniature. I do have a little mystery box to open. I have no idea what is in here, so let's see. We got a little mystery box opening in the middle of our Q&A video. Let's see what this is. I have no idea. It's a music box. It came with one of my projects and I didn't end up using it, but it could be good for the future. So I think that's every drawer sorted, and the top is sorted and the bottom is sorted, and I have quite a bit of stuff to put away or find homes for or get rid of, but I'm going to try and quick answer a few more questions and then our Q&A will be done. I had a couple people ask about my kids or my family. I am married, I have 2 children, and yes, right now they are doing virtual school, which has been a little bit rough, but honestly, the schools have been amazing. They've been trying their best with what they've been given, and I've been really proud of our school and our teachers, and hopefully they can get back into school soon. I think our school district's taking it easy, trying to figure out the best thing for well, not taking it easy. No one's doing that. They're just trying to figure out what the best thing is going to be for the kids, and so I'm happy that they're taking their time to make that decision. Ashley asks, what do you enjoy most about the miniature making medium? Is it the creative process, the brainstorming, the actual building and construction, decorating, staging the little rooms, or final product? And did you have a dollhouse as a kid? So I think my favorite thing is kind of coming up with a story, and so I guess that's part of the creative process of planning something out, but then I often find that a project kind of takes on a life of its own and becomes something as it grows. As I add details into it, it turns into something new that maybe wasn't completely in the plan at the beginning of the project, and I really love that part about it. And I kind of had a dollhouse as a kid. My dad helped me build a dollhouse that was for a book report that was on, I think it was like the Dollhouse Murders or something. Anyway, I'm not quite sure where that dollhouse went, but I remember the process of building it with my dad, and that was a really fun thing to do. M asks about Patreon. When people support your channel, how do you use the funds, and what has it done to help your channel grow? So this is a great question, and I don't really talk about Patreon that much on my main channel, but Patreon is a separate site where I interact and people pledge money to me each month. And so my patrons get a little bit of extra content each month. We do an extra live stream. They get behind the scenes weekly updates on what I'm doing. How I use those funds is to do things like upgrade my camera, buy supplies for my projects. I've also used it for store purposes. For example, last month, or was it last month or the month before, suddenly my laser tube went out on my laser cutter, and because of the Patreon funds, I was able to replace that laser tube right away without having to save up money to do that. That helped me in my store, and it also helped me because I do use my laser cutter to do things for my channel as well. So for me, it just ends up being an added monthly support on top of YouTube's ever-changing income. I'm still trying to figure everything out, but that's the gist of kind of how it works. Ashika asks, do your parents support you? Yes, they support me and are wonderful. ZC Creation asks, have you ever considered making a book about miniature, like make the characters and dioramas? And another question, what do you do with your minis other than decorations? So I have considered making a book. That would kind of be a lifelong dream for me. It may not be in the format you would think, whereas like I would show you how to make each thing, because I kind of feel like that's for free on my channel. I would do it a little bit differently, but I don't want to talk about it too much in case it never happens. And if it does happen, it would be kind of far off in the future. And then what do I do with my minis other than decorations? I love to give them away as gifts, and then sometimes I'll take out the interior pieces and keep them, or keep a special piece from a project and then sell the project itself. And Miniature Fairy Tales wants to know, what made you decide to start sharing your art on this platform, and were you already sharing on other platforms before YouTube? I decided to start sharing on YouTube because I kind of felt alone in what I was doing. And I had another online group that I was a part of, but they kind of closed down, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to and to discuss miniatures and to be excited about miniatures. And so I started my YouTube channel, which actually started out as more art, and then I realized people were way more interested in my miniature videos, and so I just switched over to miniatures, and it was the best decision I ever made. And yes, I did start sharing on a blog to begin with, and it's afminimansion.blogspot.com is where my Addams Family Mansion originated, and you can see it from the beginning there. I'll put it in the description box below if you want to check it out. That is all the questions I can possibly do today. This was kind of a crazy video. I sorted out my tool chest and answered some questions. Like I said, if I didn't get to your question, I will definitely go back to your comment and answer it personally, so you do get your question answered. I tried to pick out ones that I thought would be of general interest. A lot of the questions I ended up skipping were ones that were about personal project questions, and so I might do something like Dollhouse doctor video or something where you can send in questions and pictures, and I can kind of give building advice. I think that might be fun. But I will give you final shots of the sorted drawers. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back to my normal miniature videos next month, where we will be in Addams Family October. I hope you all have an amazing week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Someone's going to ask me why you weren't in the video today. I hope you have an explanation for yourself, Miss Stormy. No one asked a question about you, but you didn't even come visit me while I was filming. You have a leaf on your face, like usual.